All right, welcome everyone. Where we're going to be picking up today is still in the chapter 2 employers, and we're on page 143. Page 143, very bottom paragraph. And this is kind of a fun place to pick up because this is normally where I like to tease Hank Parkhurst quite a bit, as I do throughout the chapter. But don't worry, Hank and I, we're old pals. We go way back. I'm just making jokes. But page 143, very bottom paragraph. It says, can you have every confidence in his ability to recover? Now, last week at the paragraph up, we were talking about what is being described as the spiritual awakening. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, the spiritual awakening, the spiritual experience is the solution. That's what I need in order to recover. Are you asking if I recorded it? I got it. It's on this device. Oh, yeah. I got to do that. Thank you, though. I love that, because I always need adult supervision. So thank you for taking that role in that mantle. It is desperately needed. Hey, welcome. So 143, bottom paragraph. So what we were talking about and where we left off last week was some sneaky descriptions of a spiritual experience. And it talked about like change of heart, transformation of thought and attitude. And it spoke about putting recovery above all else. Now it's asking the employer, can you have every confidence in his ability to recover? So can we have confidence in their ability to get to that place? And for those that are new or new to this study or not sure, how do I get to that place of spiritual awakening? How do I get to that place where I am recovered? Well, that is the purpose of the 12 steps, to get me there. And then this is where I'm going to tease Hank. It says, well, on the subject of confidence, he brought up the subject. Welcome. We're just on page 143. We didn't get far because it's me. Bottom paragraph. He's like, hey, can you have confidence? Speaking of confidence. Now, I do not have the ability to diagnose anyone, nor would I ever. But what I will say is that Hank's attention span seems a little familiar. You know what I'm saying? He's going on a tangent, off he goes. He brought up a subject and he's like, speaking of the subject, you know? So yeah, Hank maybe struggled with focus is what I'll say. It's a little all over the place. But while on the subject of confidence, can you adopt the attitude that so far as you are concerned, this will be a strictly personal matter? So talking about trying to carry the message to this potential employee, or this employee, this alcoholic who has the potential to recover, what we're talking about is, can we keep a confidence? Now, in 2025, there are some HR protocol. You know what I mean? You're kind of not supposed to be broadcasting that stuff. But in the 1930s, this idea of being able to keep a confidence was perhaps a more novel idea. And a lot of times we speak about the chapter 2 employers as giving a lot of direction in sponsorship. And I absolutely don't disagree. I wholeheartedly agree that there are a lot of descriptions that are useful in sponsorship, especially in direct communication. But there's a sneaky little one right here. Can I keep a confidence? And it does tie in with, when we were flipping some of the directions around for who do I look for to do a fifth step with? Who do I look for to take a fifth step to? Well, if that's who I need to look for to take a fifth step to, this is who I need to be to receive a fifth step. And a big one was keeping a confidence. Welcome those that just joined. Those that joined a little while ago are going to be not surprised. We're at the same place, 143 bottom paragraph. We don't get far. Oh. So we're talking about, can I be that person that keeps a confidence? So can you adopt the attitude that so far as you are concerned, this will be a strictly personal matter? That is, alcoholic derelictions, the treatment about to be undertaken, will never be discussed without his consent. It might be well to have a long chat with him on his return. So explaining that I am keeping a confidence, that I'm not going to share this with others. That's what it's saying. To return to the subject matter of this book, which I'm just going to say is a fascinating sentence in the middle of the book. You can kind of tell he's like, well, off on a tangent on my tangent, got to bring it back. And again, if you're coming to this study, you guys are familiar with that sort of communication style. So at the very bottom of 143, to return to the subject matter of this book, it contains full suggestions by which the employee may solve his problem. Now, 143 to 144, those full suggestions are also the full suggestions which we can follow to solve our problem. And I want to point something out. Yes, they are using the phrase suggestion. Welcome, page 143, 144. We're not going quick. Yes, we can follow these suggestions and solve our problem. The main problem that I have as an alcoholic is the obsession of the mind. That is the most prominent feature. That is the feature that makes my illness one of hopelessness. That's what we're talking about. And as we do that, it's important to understand that is the thing that takes me back again and again and again to the first drink. And if that is removed, I won't take that first drink. So that's what I need. And so that my problem can be solved. And that's what it means to be recovered. It doesn't mean I'm cured. It doesn't mean there will ever be a time when I could ever safely drink again. I got the allergy. But by that same token, there will never be a time when I could ever be safely not engaged in the lifelong process of Alcoholics Anonymous. These 12 steps is a way of life, because the obsession of the mind will return. It will come back if I stop doing this thing. But also when it talks about these full suggestions. Now, I point out they are suggestions, but we don't have alternatives. Like, we don't have a gluten-free I shouldn't make that joke. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are gluten-free if you got celiac. Don't worry, there's no gluten in inventory, unless you got a big gluten resentment, and you might if you got celiac. But what I'm trying to say is we don't have an alternative set of options. In fact, the only alternative that is offered for an alcoholic, and it's not offered by Alcoholics Anonymous, the only alternative that is offered by alcoholism is to go on to the bitter ends, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could. That is the only alternative that we have. So it is a suggestion. But those full suggestions are the 12 steps as outlined in this book. That is what, so I'm just sort of really hammering this home because Alcoholics Anonymous is truly quite simple. The solution that I need is a spiritual awakening. How I get to that solution is the 12 steps. That's what I got to focus on. And when I do that, I change. When I do that, I transform. When I do that, I can stay sober and happy at the same time, which I did not think those two things, lived together. I did not think they were cohabitating because I had not seen it, right? And as we continue on, and actually just to summarize, see, I'm like Hank over here. I'm all over the place. I need an editor. That's probably Mary. When you're doing the transcriptions, you're probably like, I will make this make more sense, because I'm boop, 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 all over the place. But to summarize, what it means to have alcoholism, how I diagnose my alcoholism is that I have the allergy of the body, that once I start to drink, I can't control it every single time. And I have the obsession of the mind, which is when I am sober, I get a thought that tells me I can go back to drinking again and again. And the solution is a spiritual awakening, and how I get from that hopeless state to that solution is the 12 steps. That's what AA is. That's what AA has to offer. And of course, there's more. There's fellowship and fun and potlucks and conventions and all of that stuff. And that's wonderful. And all of that can support the main aim of having that spiritual awakening and then deepening it. But that's what I need to do. So, top of 144, it says, to you, some of the ideas which it contains are novel. And that sort of idea that what? You're telling me God's going to remove my alcoholism? God's going to remove my defects of character? Okay, there. That's what it means. It's that like, you're out of your mind. That's what it's saying. And it says, perhaps you are not quite in sympathy with the approach we suggest. So, and to be fair, this is to the employer. So I always imagine like a businessman, which often takes the shape of like Mr. Monopoly or the peanut guy, like with a top hat and a monocle and his business. We can tell I'm not corporate. I would not do well in HR. All right. But like business, right? And so we're trying to sell this on a big, serious money, business numbers sort of guy. But also, is that not our experience as alcoholics? We come to Alcoholics Anonymous and we think, oh, no. And we are not quite in sympathy of the approach. It's like, no, I can see why y'all need to do the 12 steps. I can see why y'all need a spiritual awakening. But no, this does not apply to me. And so even as alcoholics, we feel this way. It goes on to say, by no means do we offer it as the last word on the subject. So there's a humility here. We're not saying Alcoholics Anonymous is the only game in town. We're not saying it's the only thing that alcoholics can try or alcoholics can do. We're not saying you have to do Alcoholics Anonymous or else. No, especially if you don't have alcoholism, go do other things, have fun. But, and this but is important, so far as we are concerned, it has worked with us. And I can hold my own experience up to the light. And my experience is that nothing worked for me. Nothing worked for me. And I didn't try everything. But everything that I tried failed. And I tried a lot of stuff. And I couldn't achieve that permanent, contented sobriety. And again, I'm just going to, I have this habit of over-explaining. I'll tell you what contented sobriety looks like. Not wanting to die every day. That's what it looks like. And I point that out because I would tell you, yeah, no, I'm sober and yeah, I'm happy, but every single day running with suicidal ideation. So like truly, I did not have a solution. But what it's saying is we hold our experience up to this mirror. Has this worked with me? Have I become transformed as the result of these 12 steps? Is that my experience? And that's for those of us who have recovered. It is. It is. And this again is another important line. It says, after all, are you not looking for results rather than methods? And I can fight all day. Listen, I'm not super argumentative. That's inventories help that. But I am somebody who naturally, I want to, actually, I want to, yeah, but I want to, fight tooth and nail, all the stuff. But one of the things I can't argue about is the results. And I know you guys cannot relate to this. You've always been open-minded and willing and just gold star sponsees. And I'll make sure I get you a gold star after the meeting. Like you've all been wonderful and perfect. But who among us haven't fought the methods? I'll tell you what fighting the methods looks like, where it's like, why do I have to do inventory? Why do I have to do that resentment? You really want me to put that person in my sex inventory? I don't want to, that sort of, this, I have to do all these fears, that sort of thing. It also looks like, why do I have to make that amends? That fighting the methods, which of course we would do. But what we cannot argue with is the results. And the results are that these 12 steps, as outlined in this book, they work. There is no doubt that they work. If I go after them, like I went after a drink, but if I just go after them, I am utterly and radically changed. Who I am today is without question not who I was when I got here. And I mean that in the best way. I am changed despite myself. Things about me that I thought were core to who I was and that I hated about myself, I don't really do that anymore. I'm free of these things. The results are that it works. And so I can and will want to fight the methods and fight the higher power and fight all of it. But the reality is that it works. And regardless of what I think it is it way more important that I find a solution, that I find an answer, than try to argue the methods? Besides, they work too. They get us to the answer. Anyway. And it says, whether your employee likes it or not, he will learn the grim truth about alcoholism. That won't hurt him a bit, even though he does not go for this remedy. What is the grim truth about alcoholism? The grim truth about alcoholism is its hopelessness. You see, I have and again, I'm over-explaining because I think it's important. And welcome, we're on page 144, top of the page. And especially if you're new to the study and haven't been coming through the whole thing, we can do step 1 review the whole way through. There are so many points that we are talking about, things that we've been talking about this whole time. And so the grim truth about alcoholism is that I have an allergy of the body. That means that I cannot drink. That's not what's grim. What's grim is that I have an obsession of the mind that will take me back to drinking, despite the fact that I know in the depth of my soul I can't do it. I will do it again. And that's what makes this thing hopeless. I have to stay sober. I want to stay sober. I need to stay sober, but I can't do it. And I'll tell you my experiences, the times I wanted to die. And that's not a solution either. And it's saying that won't hurt him a bit. Emphasizing the hopelessness of this condition is not harmful because it is the reality of alcoholism. And it's saying it won't hurt him a bit even if he's not interested in the 12 steps as a way of life. And here's why. Because if the person is not an alcoholic, that's interesting information about alcoholism and they're able to do other things. I don't know what those are. I'm not really good at hobbies. But they're able to do hobbies and sports and just focus on a relationship or cleaning the house. They're just able to do those things, or business. They're able to focus on business, and they are okay. And that's great. But for an alcoholic, we've given them the truth about their condition. And if they're not open to the solution, again, that's okay. But it gives them the opportunity to hold up their lived experience with the information about what is alcoholism, the allergy, and the obsession. And they will go, and if they have alcoholism, they will drink again. It's not a matter of if, but when. That's alcoholism. And so when they drink again, and when they're not able to stay sober based on all the things that they are trying, it will allow them to experience the delusion that I'm different being stripped away layer by layer by layer. And in the back of their head, they'll remember that, man, they said I would drink again, and here I am. And that might bring them to the place where they might become open to this solution. And so, and we're in two employers. That's not a new idea. We've been talking about that the whole way through, right? Working with others, even our own experience, talking about that. So it says, we suggest you draw the book to the attention of the doctor who is to attend your patient during treatment. So the suggestion was to put the employee into detox so that they can physically get medically separated from alcohol. And then what it would be is being like, hey doc, here's this book. Maybe you could give it to the guy. This is alcoholism and the solution for it. That's what it's saying to do. And it goes on to say, if the book is read, the moment the patient is able, while acutely depressed, realization of his condition may come to him. And again, this is not a new idea. We saw this all through working with others. We saw it in Two Wives. We saw it in our own lived experience. And what it is talking about is that window of willingness. Now, I'm not going to be super de-duper controversial because I'm codependent and I want you desperately to like me. That hasn't changed, haven't been removed. That didn't get removed. Like me. I actually got more freedom from it than anywho. But the controversial thing that I'm going to say is, and some of you guys have heard me say it again and again, but the controversial thing is I don't believe in bottom. Because often when we talk about a rock bottom, what we think, or at least what I kept hearing, was that there would be a magical moment where my alcoholism would get so painful and so awful that I would stay sober based on that pain. And I never could. And I saw a lot of people that couldn't. And alcoholism, the nature of alcoholism is that I cannot stay sober on that pain. Pain and horror and fear is not enough to keep me sober. And so I don't believe that there's a rock bottom in that sort of sense. But what happens is I burn my life to the ground and I hit this wall, I hit this place of pain. And what opens up is this window of willingness, this window where I'm willing to take action I wasn't before willing to take. And when we move within that, remarkable things can happen. If I move within that window of willingness, and if I take enough action quickly and thoroughly, I can get rocketed into that fourth dimension before that window closes. And when that window closes, it's not a matter of if, but when I drink again. And we see this in ourselves, but we also see it working with others. So we see it when we're working with others and we got that brand new sponsee and they're cracked open and they're willing to go and we start working with them. And if we start taking a little bit too long, we can see that window closing and what it looks like from the outside in. Is it looks like, it closes and I can't listen, I am codependent. I use my codependency as a crowbar to try to crack that bad boy open. I'll let you know it doesn't work, but that didn't stop me from giving it a try. But when it closes, what it looks like from the outside in is it looks like them starting to miss appointments or reschedule appointments, asking them to do a thing and it slipped away. You know what I mean? That's what it begins to look like. And not that I believe me, I'm not a perfect sponsor by any means, but what I found helpful is to tell them that's what I'm seeing. Will it reopen it? Probably not. But I believe I have a responsibility to be honest and to over communicate, theme of the study today, but to communicate that which I see. And what I see is that your window's closed and you're in trouble. I don't know what it's going to take. I'd suggest we redouble, we got to go after this. You're in trouble. That's what it looks like. But we can also hold that up to ourselves. So if we've been in and out and in and out and in and out before, we can look and remember those times we're like, I'm all in. And that slow drifting away, that slow, no, I don't got to do all this. That sitting on that 4-step, avoiding that amends. And amends, even for those of us who are recovered, if we got an amend that comes to mind. And then you guys know that this will give you a laser beam into that window experience when it's like, I got to make an amends for that. I completely forgot. And then if we take action while that moment is on us, we'll be okay. But as soon as I start, I'll deal with that tomorrow, window closes and we try to forget about that amends. Not you guys. You guys would always take rigorous action right away. But somebody like me, I know what that's like for me when the window closes within me. So it goes on. If the book is read the moment the patient is able, while acutely depressed, realization of his condition may come to him. So it's saying work within that window of willingness. And it ties in with this theme that we see throughout the whole book, that hopelessness to hope. I've got to see the reality of my condition, which is hopelessness. And from then I will be able to grab a hold of the hope that is on offer. It goes on to say, we hope the doctor will tell the patient the truth about his condition, whatever that happens to be. So if they're an alcoholic, the truth is that this thing is hopeless, that this thing is fatal, that we will drink again on our own power. That's the truth for alcoholism. I don't know what the truth is for non-alcoholics. I haven't gotten that information because apparently it doesn't apply to me. Now, I don't think I've ever had a doctor be like, you'll be all right. I don't know. Any sort of mental health professional be, no, you're good. Yeah, no, that hasn't come to me. So it goes on to say, when the man is presented with this volume, it's best that no one tell him he must abide by its suggestions. The man must decide for himself. And this is a callback to what we experience. Well, this is a callback to what we experience on page 30 in step 1. But also we see that all over Two Wives. Two Wives is saying you cannot bully, nag, convince, coerce, plead, get your alcoholic to do something in a permanent way that they don't want to do. And so it's that same sort of idea that we have to let the alcoholic decide for themselves. I am going to be honest with what the information is, but the first step on page 30 tells me that I need to concede to my innermost self. I am the one that needs to be convinced about my alcoholism. And believe me, when I work with people, I am absolutely convinced of their alcoholism. But it does no good because I can't make them do it. And believe me, I try so hard to make them do it. Some of y'all know, I will drag them through the steps. But as soon as they start kicking and screaming, I let go. Which is, maybe not the best sponsorship, but that's what it looks like for me. So it goes on to say, you are betting, of course, that your changed attitude plus the contents of this book will turn the trick. So the changed attitude is that of the employer. That of, we are, sorry, my ADHD. We're having before the meeting started, we were having the kitty show and tell hour, and we just had a little visit from a kitty in one of the chat squares. So I want you to know, kitty show and tell. It happens all the time. We're always here for it. Oh, man, my focus is bad today. I'm channeling my inner Hank Parkhurst. And actually, we can tell that's not true because, he was a salesman, a wheeler and dealer. And I'm like, well, I wheel, but I don't. And listen, if you've seen me show up to life, clearly I'm not dealing, not coping well. I'm just kidding. Okay, focus up. So it says, you are betting, of course, that the changed attitude is the one that the employer is going to have. And that change attitude is some of those requirements that we were talking about earlier in this chapter. The requirements of we're going to see the alcoholic as a sick person. And we're going to approach them as if they have alcoholism. We're also going to let go of the things they've done in the past. And if they really want to get well, we're going to offer them this way of life. That changed attitude. And it's saying in some cases it will. Some people, when they have hit that place where the window's cracked open, they'll grab a hold. It will. And in others, it may not. And we know what that's like. We try to carry this message. We try to work with others, especially those that are new and struggling. And some of them will grab a hold, and some of them are like, no, thank you, I'm good. No, thank you, I'm not interested. It goes on to say, but we think if you persevere, the percentage of success will gratify you. And that's of course, we're talking about the employer doing their business and getting their money and all of that. But I like to hold that up as a lens for sponsorship. Because I am not perfect, and I'm not saying I know the right way to sponsor. But what I will tell you is I'm always focused on, is what I'm doing effective? I want to be effective in sponsorship. And that goal of effectiveness changed how I sponsored over the years. I talk about this quite a bit, so I apologize for those that are like, yeah, we know. But for years, I would do things because my sponsor was like, that's what I do. And that's what that sort of stuff. But I saw that there were things that we were doing that were slowing down the process. And when I slow down the process, I lose momentum. And I was working with people that didn't really want to work as intensively as I wanted to work with them. But with that, I saw what didn't work. And I had that experience of some of this stuff not working. We got a variety on Kitty Show and Tell today, a whole variety of them. But I saw what was not working. And I started to lean in with what I intuitively, and it lined up with what was in the book. Please know that I wasn't making things up. That working quickly and thoroughly with people was not like radical things, but it just wasn't being done where I lived in the world, in the way that I do it. And it's that sort of thing. I get to lean into what is more effective. And if what I'm doing is not working, and I've been working with a lot of people, that's okay. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. I'm not the worst sponsor. We don't rank them. There's not a leaderboard like in golf. Thank goodness. But what we see is the opportunity to grow and to change. We're not locked in, and we get to be more effective. And if we continue on, the percentage of success that we see as we work with others will begin to gratify us. Because we're going to learn from our mistakes. We're going to learn from what's not working. The more I work with others, the more experience I have to work with others. That's the beauty of this thing. So it goes on to say, as our work spreads and our numbers increase, we hope your employees may be put into personal contact with some of us. Because keep in mind, this book went out to carry this message. And you might get a copy of this book, however you got it, and not know a single other sober individual. But it goes on to say, meanwhile, we are sure that a great deal can be accomplished by the use of the book alone. This book carries the directions on how to get well. That's why we study it. That's why we want an experience with it. So that I can find out how to get well, because it works, and it worked when there were no meetings and no fellowship and no, all the things we have. We're right in the middle of the holiday season, and thank goodness, and we have marathon meetings and that sort of stuff. That was a lifesaver for me when I was in early recovery. But it's saying, like, the information in this book, if I follow it, it is enough to bring about a spiritual awakening. It goes on to say, on your employer's return. So return from what? The first direction was to send them away for detox, in terms of like the actionable items that the employer was doing. The first thing was like, hey dude, get your mind right. But they phrased it way more professional than I just did. Business. And so the second is send them away to detox. And then we make it clear that detox is but a small part of this thing, that they're going to have to undergo a spiritual awakening. And the 12 steps, so it's like, offer that. So on the return, it says, talk with him. Ask him if he thinks he has the answer, if he feels free to discuss his problems with you, if he knows you understand and will not be upset by anything he wishes to say, he will probably be off to a fast start. So ultimately what it's saying is, like, create that atmosphere of safety. Again, there's a lot of places that we often pull from with two employers for sponsorship. And this is one where we typically don't. But I think there's value in it. Can I create that atmosphere of safety in that sponsor-sponsee relationship? Because here's the thing. Not you guys. Not you when you have been sponsored. But other sponsees, unrelated to you guys, will sometimes say some and do some wild things, I know nobody here can relate, but can I be that person of safety? Can I meet them where they're at, and just like the book, take them where they need to go? Can I do that for them? It goes, and it says, you will probably be off to a fast start, that this is a beginning, right? Can I create that place where, like, yes, I'm here for you, I can help. And it says, in this next paragraph, in this connection, can you remain undisturbed if the man proceeds to tell you shocking things? An alcoholic? Shocking things? I am shocked. I am shocked that this would be the outcome. He may, brace ourselves, let's brace, he may, for example, reveal he has padded his expense account, not like the gentleman that we saw. Hey, this is a real redemption arc for, if you remember on 65, that inventory where it's like, my employer, he threatens to fire me for padding my expense account. What are we doing here? Making amends for it. It's a real redemption arc. It's great. It's great. But an alcoholic stealing from work? No, wild. I can't tell you how many times I'm working with sponsees and I, we're in starting the 4th step. I'm like, go get a notebook. Hey, don't steal it from work. And then they get offended. They're like, oh, I wouldn't. I'm like, okay, you wouldn't. Me over here, it's stationary. Anywho. So it says, or that he has planned to take your best customers away from you. An alcoholic plotting, and by the way, that is a strategy that only happens, I would say, 6 to 12 beers deep. When you're like, no, you know what, my boss, he's a jerk. I'm gonna steal his best customers, all of them. That's that sort of plan. Just for those that actually have employees and get a little nervous. That's when those sorts of plots are cooked up, And it says, in fact, he may say almost anything if he has accepted our solution, which, as you know, demands rigorous honesty. And what we're doing here is we're preparing the employer to receive the ninth step. That's what we're trying to do. Prepare the employer to receive the ninth step amends. And it says, can you charge this off as you would a bad account? Can you charge this off as you would a bad account? Can you start fresh with him? Can we say, okay, we're just clean state, let's go on from here? And then this is unfortunate for many of us, not any of you guys who would ever owe money to a company or anything, but this is some bad news. Not cool, Hank, and then edited by Bill. If he owes you money, you may wish to make terms. Oh man, you're telling me it's okay for the boss to ask for the money back? Oh, not cool. And this is a real, double whammy. Because earlier it was like, hey, it might be helpful to have the employee pay out of their wages for their treatment. It's better if they feel fully responsible. Oh man, trying to impose financial responsibility on an alcoholic? Rude. Rude. As if it comes naturally to any of us. It usually needs to be imposed. Anywho. So, it goes on. If he speaks of his home situation, you can undoubtedly make helpful suggestions. Can he talk frankly with you so long as he does not bear business tales or criticize his associates, creating that position of safety? And when I work with sponsees, they can give me, I'm not married, but they can give me marital problems. I don't have kids, but they can give me problems with their kids. I'm clearly not a business person, but they can give me problems with employment. I have not hired, nor have I fired. I do not wheel. Well, I do wheel. That's the wheelchair. But you know what I mean? I don't wheel. I don't deal. None of that. But I can offer helpful suggestions. And what are my helpful suggestions? It's not dump them. It's let's write inventory. It's not tell your boss where to put it, It's, all right, let's bring this to prayer. Let's bring this to meditation. And why don't we take this through the columns? Those are the helpful suggestions. I'm not here to fix and manage. I'm here when I work with others to take their hand and put it in God's hand. That is my responsibility. And it says, and there's that also that, can he talk frankly with you so long as he does not bear business tales or criticize his associates? There's actually a lot of times in this chapter that we speak about boundaries. And to be fair, boundaries feels like a little bit of, new age isn't the right word, but 2025 lingo, like the boundaries, But a boundary is just being honest about my limitations. And to be honest about hey, we're not going to be gossiping over here. But we can take that person through the columns. Again, some really helpful suggestions. And the result is it says with this kind of an employee, such an attitude will command undying loyalty. So the result of showing up in this way will get loyalty. Now keep in mind the thrust of what this chapter is trying to do is sell these business people on why alcoholics should be saved. We know why we should be saved. We're phenomenal. We're amazing. We're the best. And also the worst at the same time, depending on how many drinks we're in. You know what I mean? But that, we know why. But trying to quantify the reasons for a humanitarian attitude is to sell the business people. Hey, you will, in response to this, you will get loyalty. That will be a return on investment because an ROI is something they would care about. It goes on. The greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. And so what's the takeaway? When it says the greatest enemies of us alcoholics, welcome, we're on page 145. Are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. And the resentment being one of the greatest enemies should not be new information. We spoke about that in resentments. It's, resentments are the number one offender. They destroy more alcoholics than anything else. From them stem all forms of spiritual disease. That's what it's talking about. And we spoke in amends about that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. And then that envy, that's just another way of looking at jealousy. It's rooted in that I don't have and somebody else has, that's what it's rooted in. And then it has frustration. And when we talk about frustration, it's an interesting thing. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring up, I made a little inventory, and I'm trying to get it. So when we talk about frustration, oftentimes when I'm working with sponsees, now you guys can't relate to this, but when I'm working with sponsees, I'll be like, hey, that sounds like a resentment. And my sponsees will respond with, no, it's not a resentment. And then the same sponsee who has no interest in the dictionary or thesaurus seems to pull one out of nowhere, and they're going through their like spiritual thesaurus, and they're like, it's not a resentment, I'm just a little frustrated. And then they flip it around. No, I'm not resentful, I'm just a little irritated. No, it's not a resentment, it's just not how it should be, or whatever. And so what I learned is that, like, when it comes to like, I can't seem to find it. But what I did was I made a resent. Yeah, the very English word of, it's just a wee niggle. Like, it's just a little resentment that is bouncing around. Or, yeah, it's not a resentment, I just want them dead. I'm not resentful at all. I would pull their life support. It's not resentful. Right? Like, and I know you guys are like, no, I would always do my columns, but for some reason we get the thesaurus out. But I love that it points to the greatest enemy is frustration. Because whether I want to pull the thesaurus out or not, a frustration is just a resentment that I've given a fancy name to it. Even if it's not as burning hot as a resentment, we have no axes to grind, so you better do inventory instead of getting out your axe for that. Not a resentment, Absolutely. Oh, that's how this thing goes. But it's really like, if you guys have ever had a rock in your shoe, that's what a frustration is. It's a rock in my shoe, but it wears me down all day, day after day. It's not a resentment, but it's just going to go around in a circle again and again and again in my mind. And I'm going to, it's like I'm a cow and I'm chewing the cud. It's something I've already chewed. I'm chewing it again. But it's not a resentment, but that's all I can think of. But it's not a resentment, but I'm still pissed about it. It's not a resentment, but I'm still thinking about how I would win that argument in the shower, right? And it is a reminder that what I need to do is utilize the tools that I have been given. And the tools that I have been given are the columns. Whether I utilize that in the 10th step, where I see that I'm ruminating, I see that I'm spinning around in like my mental wheels, and it's just a frustration. I call somebody. I say a prayer, I call somebody, and I talk it with them through the columns. I then turn my thoughts to someone I can help. Or if I miss it during the day, because I miss things. I am human and deeply flawed. Y'all know that. You've been coming to this thing for a while. I'm deeply flawed. And so when I miss them, I catch them in the evening review. And in the evening review, if it's there, I take it through the columns. And guess what? Sometimes life just hits. Sometimes we just get a wave of life. And so I'll sit down and do a little bit more of a dedicated inventory, because it's more than I can just clean up in a 10th or in an evening review. And that's what I do. We utilize the columns. So there's a desperate need for frustration. And so what I was trying to find on my computer, I forgot to grab it ahead of time, and I'm not finding it. Actually, I think I know where I would find it. I'll see if I can find it. But what I found, what I made was, I said, you know what? With all my sponsees who are like, it's not a resentment. Oh man, I think we might have it. Hold on. There it is. I found it. It's wild with somebody who has no attention span trying to facilitate and find something on my computer at the same time. So what I did was I came up with columns that are not for resentments in any way. They're columns for being frustrated. And you'll notice it says, no, I'm not resentful, ... I'm just a little ... frustrated. And so the columns kick off in a very similar way. We name the person or the institution or principal with whom we were just a little frustrated. And then it says, why am I not angry? Just a little frustrated. And then the joke is, it's the exact same columns as the resentment inventory, the exact same ones. I just crossed out angry and wrote a little frustrated. So all of that hard work in my mind behind the scenes was just so I could make that silly little joke. But that's the idea, is like, if I'm just a little frustrated, well, it's going to take, 5 minutes at most to get to the other side of it, at most. And that is the worst thing that could happen, is that I waste 5 minutes. But when we talk about being frustrated, I'm wasting more than just 5 minutes. I'm wasting days, if not weeks, like kicking this pebble down the road of frustration. And the truth is, the more that I take my own inventory, the more that I grow freedom from these defects of character. The more that I take my own inventory, the more that I see the truth about who I am, the more that I see the truth about the things in myself that are blocking me, the more that I experience, the more that I get to make amends and clean things up, but the healthier my relationships are. And ultimately, the more that I take inventory, the more that I'm able to help you. And the more that I'm able to help you with your inventory, then I'm able to help more and more. And it just grows and it builds momentum, but it cannot grow from, no, I don't need to take that action. If I'm willing to take that action, I can grow and I can change and I can be transformed. And so when it says the greatest enemies of alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear, and we already spoke about how fear is this corrosive thread that eats away at the fabric of my existence. I got to get free of each and every one of these things. What is the message? The message is not wrap me in a bubble and like I need you to stay away because I cannot have resentment. Put me in a little monastery on the side of a mountain where I can have quiet. Although I could use some quiet, really. The message is that I need to be, as an alcoholic, the message for the alcoholic is that I need to be fearless. I need to be thorough. I need to be rigorous in this way of life to keep that channel clear. Because my life depends on it. Those are my greatest enemies. Can I be willing to be free of them? And if you're like, how do I inventory not resentment? We know how to inventory resentment. How do I inventory jealousy and envy? Sounds like a resentment to me. I'm just feeling a negative emotion that they have something that I don't have. They're getting things that I want and I think it's unfair. So I can utilize the resentment columns. Just going to throw that out there. Because I'm one of those people that when I'm facing it, I can get stuck in, like, how do I do it? That's how. Just resentment inventory. Resentful. Why? Because Joe Blow got the sunny vacation and we were having a blizzard this morning. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it goes on. So it says, wherever men are gathered together in business, there will be rivalries, and arising out of these, a certain amount of office politics. Thank goodness, I'm not involved in an office for there to be office politics. I am not that sort of human being. I would not do well in that sort of environment. There's actually a lot of times it's only like after looking back where I'm like, oh, they were trying to be mean to me. And I'm responding with me trying to be helpful. I'm like, oopsies, that was not what I thought. I'm not cut out for that sort of white collar environment. But it's saying, hey, in the office, there's going to be office politics. There's going to be human beings who have defects of character. Rude that it's not just limited to alcoholics. And it says, sometimes we alcoholics have an idea that people are trying to pull us down. Don't we? We think the world is out to get us. As I'm lying in a gutter, the world is after me. We're so focused on, listen, I'm just behind the dumpster, drinking myself, yeah. And this is the truth. It says, often this is not so at all. Often nobody's out to get me. Often I'm not that important. People aren't actually thinking about me. They're busy thinking about what people think about them. That's why they're not thinking about me. I'm not that. I also say, if you want to gossip about me, you can. But it's not a lot of hot tea over here. You know what I'm saying? It's not. I don't got the interesting stuff. I'm pretty boring. Well, Bug Kate, she probably has got some hot gossip. She'll make, and if you know what, here's permission. You can make some stuff up if you're like, yeah, I don't got some good stuff. Make it up. Make it interesting though. Like talk of the town. Alrighty. So often this is not so at all, but sometimes our drinking will be used politically. So again, it is a reminder about that confidentiality in the workplace for the employers. And again, we're going to see that because we're going to see an example. It says, one instance comes to mind in which a malicious individual was always making friendly little jokes about an alcoholic's drinking exploits. It is interesting how selfishness, unkindness can be hidden behind humor. You know what I mean? Good, by the way, I'll point out, good humor doesn't punch down. You know what I'm saying? If it's funny, there's not a victim of the humor. And we can feel when that's happening. It's a reminder not to do that. Not to do that. In another case, it says, in this way, he was slyly carrying tales. So using that humor as a way to gossip. Oh goodness, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Please keep coming. And I'll put some info in the chat after about other studies that we do and the recordings for this one. Absolutely. It goes on to say, in another case, an alcoholic was sent to a hospital for treatment. Only a few knew of it at first, but within a short time, it was billboarded throughout the entire company. Naturally, this sort of thing decreased the man's chance of recovery. Not you guys, but I've been a sensitive alcoholic. I was talking about this at the earlier study where it's like sensitive is just a synonym for self-centered. You know, I'm making it about me and I'm worried about what people think. And I'll be honest, I have had people genuinely gossip about me and about like what was going on with my health. And that was genuinely quite devastating at the time. And it says, naturally, this sort of thing decreased the man's chance of recovery. And if we're going to invest time and money and effort as a business person into the alcoholic, we want to make sure we got a good return on investment. So, hey, that's going to decrease the odds of getting a successful outcome. It says, the employer can many times protect the victim from this kind of talk. The employer cannot play favorites, which... it's later on it's going to say, or at some point it says, the right sort of man doesn't want to be the favorite. And I'm like, oh, no, I want to be the favorite. I want my little gold star. Tell me I'm doing a good job. I want to be the favorite. But it says the employer cannot play favorites, but he can always defend a man from needless provocation and unfair criticism. So that idea of like, hey, we are not going to make the alcoholic the favorite, because again, that's going to play into the office politics and the gossip and all of those sort of hierarchical, races for the perception of power and control. And that's not going to help. But what we can do is take an active role in preventing gossip within the bounds of the company. Now, I'm not a business person, but I can also take a proactive role and not having gossip in my life. And that's something I can do. And I normally go a couple minutes over, but Vivian's here. So she's got me on the straight and narrow. And so I will wrap it up with a minute to spare and toss it over to her. Thank you so much.